When we bow and we bend, we will not be ashamed. So that's the opposite of the ego sense, isn't it? Because the ego says, no, I shall not bow down. I shall be bowed down too. This entire world is here to worship me.
It's like the difference between a cat and a dog, right?
In what way?
Well, they say that cats want you to worship them and dogs worship you.
Well, yeah. We could say like that. Oh. Okay, let's repeat Gita Dhyanam together. It's Bhagavad Gita time. So in this kirtan book, there should be a loose sheet. It looks like that. And this is an English translation of what traditionally would always be chanted at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita class or discussion. So we can repeat together. Did you have one? No? Then please help, because we have one. We have lots of them. And that book wants to be set aside, and Uma Devi, you know the secret to how to get those in, because you did it. So we need to print a few more. Okay. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. My nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. So we're in chapter 8, which is the yoga of the...
Oh, the kingly science. No.
Yeah, you could say like that. The royal science and the kingly secret. It can be. So the royal science and the kingly secret, like that.
The Raja.
Raja. So Muktiji, our dear friend Mukti, he's actually with family in the southeast in Mississippi, I believe, right now. But he's these morning discussions. He's helping us to get categorized and on YouTube, the morning Bhagavad Gita discussions. So it's a big commitment on his part, and he's been very much into it. And so he asked me the question yesterday, so do we call it the yoga of this chapter? Because there's a chapter name on the slide. Do we call it the yoga of the royal science and the kingly secret, or do we call it Raja Yoga? He said, well, we need the long version, but that's Raja. Raja is the king, the royal. So in this chapter, the Lord is speaking to what is a secret to us. And why is it a secret?
We don't know.
Well, we can come to find out. We have been turned around backwards. We've been turned around backwards. We've been reoriented. Why is a different question, but the fact of the matter you can discover. Peace is within, but we're looking without. Yeah? Happiness is within, but we're looking without. What we need in order to find what we seek is a quiet mind, but the mind is all involved in going out in order to find what's being sought. So we've been turned around backwards. That you can know. The why is a philosophical discussion, and the amazing thing is the one who's actually discovered the secret within and without won't ask that question why. So it's one that gets answered, but it doesn't get answered in the way the mind wants the answer. In other words, there's satisfaction about it.
Also the teachings.
But not the kind of answer that we might want to hear. Although sometimes they'll be proffered. Sometimes answers will be proffered why. But what is actually very much possible to discover, and how to come out of it is known. And that's the royal science. The secret is what seems to have been hidden from us. And so that's why this discussion is so important, because we're seeking something that's remaining a secret from us. Om, please.
Oh, just that, that's why the teachings, Swamiji, are so important. They don't explain the why, not really.
No.
They help to move each being from it being a secret into it being known.
Into it being known.
Yeah.
From ignorance into wisdom.
Yeah.
From badness to goodness.
Yeah.
And that was the discussion last night, right? What is this life? So our situation can be seen through. It's possible to do. It's not easy, right? But we can do. Generally speaking, the teachers will do their best. The great teachers will do their best to simplify it. And here, in fact, today, Lord Krishna shares with us something that's very simple but profound. But the thing is that it's very hard for us to catch what's simple because we've been turned around.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So it's going to take great effort to turn back around and to be able to be present with what's simple. And that's that song that we were just singing. 'Tis a gift to be simple, right?
Oh.
And then by bowing and bending, we will not be ashamed. So our work, our sadhana, is really about being simple, becoming simple. You could say simple-minded. Which would be true. Being simple-minded is a great gift.
Did we read some of that story?
Sorry?
I don't know if we read the story or the story was shared here about everyone being concerned of a simple-minded person. And the simple-minded person was so happy and content
I know.
and not worried, but everybody else was.
That's what we've been seeking all this time. Happiness. But we made it so complex. We made it. We're going to have to find exactly the right girl or the right guy. They're going to have to be exactly the way that we want them to be. They cannot change.
Or if they do, they change the way we want them to change.
Yeah, or they change exactly the way we want them to change. Or X amount of money or... Oh, okay. So we pick up here. We'll pick up here on 5. Now behold the mystery of my divine yoga. So this is the absolute. I mean, how much faith? It helps if we can have a little bit of faith in what's being shared. And if we can't, at least to be open to it. That's where we find ourselves, is we're we're so caught up in our stuff that it's very difficult to be open. But of course, the only way to learn is to be open. So since we're not open, and since we have to learn what the world does, is it cracks us open like a nut. It says, come on, be present. How hard am I going to have to hit you before you crack open and be present? And all that's being asked of us is to be open to allow for. It's not being asked to believe something. It's because proof will come. But if you allow yourself to be open and allow for, then the proof will come, and then you get to faith. But, and what's the hard shell? Well, the hard shell is our whole belief system, which is imaginary. It's only ours. Nobody else believes what we believe. Have you figured that out? The beliefs that we find ourselves so firmly locked up in, it's only us. And we have this idea that if I can find somebody else who believes what I do, I'll be happy. Oh, my Lord. Such is our situation. Such is the result of this having been turned around. So if we can allow for, and this is what we're asking for right now, is what is being shared with us. So who's it coming from? It's not coming from a being called Krishna. Allow for this. It's coming from the Absolute through an instrument called Krishna. And the Absolute here is speaking of the highest truth. The kingly secret. The secret which, if we come to discover, all of the other secrets are revealed. It's like that one puzzle piece, you're looking at you're looking at this puzzle and you're getting a picture. I saw a puzzle out here yesterday. And you're trying to get a picture of how it goes together. And you need to see that one piece, and maybe it just happens to be on the floor. And when you see that one piece, the rest of the puzzle comes together. Have you had that experience? Yeah. This is the same. This is the same. It's exactly the same. So if you can grasp what's being shared, however we grasp it, and then live it, then the whole puzzle gets revealed. So here's what he says. He, she, it. It says, now behold the mystery of my divine yoga. All creatures in truth do not exist in me. Though I bring forth and support all that exists, I myself am not contained in them. All the creation moving about abides in me, even as the great winds going here and there are actually resting in space. At the end of a kalpa, cycle of eons, all creatures return to my prakriti, my nature. I generate them again, Arjuna, at the beginning of the next kalpa. We were discussing, like sleep, like deep sleep. In the same way that we find that in deep sleep, we cease to exist. Right? And then somehow you come out of deep sleep, you wake up, and now you exist once again. And you don't know anything about what that existence was in between. So in between, in that time of deep sleep, you existed only as a seed, only as potential, and you didn't have any knowledge of the seed. Right? If there's knowledge of the seed, that belongs to something higher than you. Yeah? But everything that you thought you were in deep sleep, gone. Right? And you might not wake up from it, by the way. But somehow it happens But here, in this case, the same is being described on a macro scale, right? There is this big bang, the universe comes forth, all of these beings, all of this. Where did it exist before? Mystery to science, but not a mystery to the Absolute. Because the Absolute understands where it came from. And it remains within the Absolute. All of it. The Absolute is the potential for this. And so this arises just like we come out of deep sleep as an individual. And then at the end of this cycle, it collapses back again into that Absolute. And that Absolute is unchanging. So this is being described. I myself am not being affected by these actions because I witness it all with pure detachment. Through my presence, the elements of nature generate all that is stationary and all that moves. And thus, Arjuna, the world revolves. So the world moves. And this earth turns, and everything's turning, huh? Turning and turning, we come around right. Everything's turning. Everything's revolving. This world revolves. Where is it revolving within? Still within that silence and peace. That silence and peace which were here, which this universe arose from, are still here. And so too the Absolute was here before the creation, is here now, and is here after this particular cycle is over. But this cycle is playing out infinitely through the infinite universes. The cycle never ends. I love the Daksha, Catholic Daksha. In glory to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. As it was in the beginning, it is now and ever shall be, world without end. So this cycle continues. This is what's being described. This cycle continues forever, infinite. What we call creation, not creation, projection. And the light remains. And the light beings rise up. The light beings collapse. But the light remains. And the one remains. This is what's being shared. A little commentary by Swami says, long before the scientists understood this, and the scientists do now understand what's being discussed, but they don't attribute it to an absolute, but in a way they do. They just can't identify what the absolute is. In other words, the scientists understand the freaky nature of things here, and they understand that this universe came from a singularity, and they also understand that nothing is created. That's the first law of thermodynamics. They know that nothing is created and nothing is destroyed. We read that a couple of days ago, right? So that's understood, and it's a law. It's not a theory. It's been proven mathematically to be so. Nothing's created, nothing's destroyed. So they actually understand that this entire universe didn't come from nothing, but it came from no thing. So there is an understanding that it came from pure potential. But to them, that pure potential remains a singularity. To the yogi, there's the possibility of discovering that pure potential because it exists within. It is what we call God. The Father, the highest. Allah to the Muslims. The Buddha nature to the Buddhists. Brahman to the Hindus. So many names. And to the scientists, the singularity. It's the same. But the nature of the singularity can't be understood through objective study. One can listen, one can observe, one can live in a way to honor it, and it can be revealed to us. But the mind will never understand it because the mind arises within it and collapses back into it.
Can you repeat that?
The mind can never understand it because the mind arises within it. How can a child understand its mother? The mother can understand the child because the mother gives birth to the child. Is it so? But how can the child understand the mother? Because the child wasn't there when the mother was being crafted, created. Is it so? But the reverse is true, isn't it? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So the mind, universal mind, is the child of the Absolute. It comes from the Absolute. It can't understand the Absolute.
Yeah, I didn't understand my mom for so long until I became a mom.
Yeah. And now you still don't understand her, but you understand something about motherhood.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh. But you can't. You can't. Only if you look at yourself can you get some idea of your mother. But you still won't have complete knowledge. Right? So here we're dealing in a field where we, with this mind, have limited capacity, but we do have some. By understanding mind, we get a glimpse of the Absolute. By asking the question, where did this thought come from? We're allowed to have the experience of the Absolute. We're able to determine that the Absolute is life itself. And this is what Krishna is sharing. That all of this that moves is coming from that. So he says, long before the scientists understood this, Sri Krishna said that the world revolves. And Sri Krishna explains that he is the cause. Yet at the same time, he is witness also. He is the cause of all the worlds, and he is the witness of the manifested world, the one who keeps an eye on everything, an overseer. And again, it's the same. You can see it at the micro level because you can see in your own life experience, you are the overseer of this person. Is it so? It's mysterious, isn't it? But it's true, isn't it? You're the overseer. You're seeing what's happening. You have the ability, if you do it, to step back from it, right? And to observe the patterns and tendencies and the choices that you're making and all of this, yes? And you have the capacity as the overseer even to change them. So at the macro level, this is the same that's being described. He is the cause of all the worlds, and he's a witness of the manifested world, the one who keeps an eye on everything, an overseer. Normally, the overseer is over it and sees everything. He's not involved in it, though. So it seems like you're involved in your life, but in fact, you're watching it all this time. And you remain you regardless. You remain you in that womb, you remain you in that adolescence, you remain you in the adulthood, you remain you on the deathbed, you remain you after the body has died. You remain you on the astral voyage. And you remain you coming back again. You never are other than you. You've never had the experience of anyone other than you. You couldn't be anyone other than you. You just take yourself to be this being, but the being is changing, constantly subjected to this and that. It's happy, it's not happy, it's looking, it's not looking, it's sitting, it's standing, it's jumping, it's running around, all of this. But you are still you. And even in the greatest depression, you're still you. And so too, this absolute remains unaffected. And you say, I was affected, this happened, this happened, this happened, that's a misunderstanding. Because the very fact that you remain you proves to you, it's self-evident, by the way, that you remain you, unaffected by whatever happened here. You can say, I get up again. Well, it's the person that gets up again. And so too, the Lord is saying, unaffected by what's happening. unaffected by what's happening. So, and then he adds, but here Sri Krishna is part of it at the same time outside of it. He is in and out, or he's overseeing himself. Is it too much philosophy and theory? And it may be. It's very hard to grasp. There's no doubt what's being shared. It's very hard to grasp. But in our own ways, we can allow for it, allow for ourselves to be cracked open a bit. It's good to know that there's an overseer behind all this moving and unmoving nature. God is a big magnet just there while all the iron filings representing nature are running around. God is not moving, but makes every particle move. He continues, we can copy God's example. Without losing our peace, we watch ourselves running about. This is what we're just talking about, just for fun. So you can try it. You can try it. See if you can practice it. See if you can be undisturbed today and watch yourself move about. But in our cases, unfortunately, sometimes we forget that we are the pure, unaffected witness. Instead, we identify with the part that's running about, the mind and the body, and that causes all the problems. That's why it's good always to try to be the overseer of everything, rise above everything, and neutrally watch it. And I've shared with those of us that are resident here the story, but a few that this hasn't been shared with. It's just a beautiful example. When I was still walking, I visited some of our community, of our friends or family in Maine, and I was invited to come and visit Chap. He has a farm. Farm is named Second Wind Farms. It's a little farm on this little island off the coast of Maine. And he has so much love in his heart, and he's very much aware. He's very simple, very motivated, enough background. So he was showing me around the farm, and he showed me a field of barley, a fairly small field of barley, but he'd left half of it unharvested. And he said, I left it for the bees. And he said, look at the bees. And so I looked at the bees. And he said, no, he said, don't look at them as individual bees. Stand back, bring your perspective back, and look at the entire field of bees, which I did. And it's a completely different experience. Why? Because then, instead of seeing an individual bee and wondering why is he doing this and why is he doing that, if you see the entire field, you see the dance. And it became obvious because this one's doing this and the other one's doing that. This one's flying to a flower, the other one's flying back. And it's all an orchestrated movement. It's a completely orchestrated dance. And that's the nature of the bees. And so too, there's a nature of this world which makes sense, but only if you can step back. And if you can step back further, you can see even this nature arising and receding back within to the absolute. You'll have to step back all the way. But the further you step back, is it so? The further you step back from the situation, the more clarity you have about the situation. Yeah? So this is something that Swamiji is suggesting. So see if you can step back and be the overseer of what you're doing instead of all wrapped up in it. It's a practice. And this is what Lord Krishna is sharing, that he is the overseer of this, but also, what is this? This is his nature, prakriti. So just like you have an inside and an outside, just like you have an eye, and then all these thoughts and desires and this body and all of this, inside, outside, right? Subject, object. Yes? So you have an inside and an outside. So the Lord has an inside and an outside, and this all happens to be. So that inside is what's called the Father. The outside is what's called the Son, for God's sakes. And the life force, the Holy Ghost. Father stepped back, observing, inside, I. Son, the children, the created, the beings, the nature, that which moves and that which doesn't move. And the Holy Ghost is the prana, as it were, the life force. The life force. So in the same way that you have an inside and an outside, is it true? Can you see that you have an inside? Mm-hmm. The I that everything here is happening to? Yeah, that's the inside, isn't it? Subject. And outside, the stuff that's happening. Mm. And the stuff that's happening is not really separate from you, but you're actually unaffected by it. Mm-hmm. In other words, you have something to do with what's happening to you. So there's a relationship there, yes? And that relationship will help to touch what's being shared. So he's speaking from the perspective of the Absolute, saying all of this is happening within me, but I'm unaffected by it because I'm observing it. This is all the lower nature, my lower nature. And by the way, it's whole, complete, and perfect. It's whole, complete, and perfect. Perfection looks like this. The silly ego has an idea that perfection looks like everyone thinks the way I do, acts the way I do. But if you have absolute potential in an egg and then the egg manifests, what does it look like? It looks like everything. Remember, no two snowflakes alike. It looks like everything, every idea, every shape, every size, every color. Every possibility, pairs of opposites. North, south, east, west, hot, cold, up, down, and everything in between. Yeah. And that's the nature. That's the outer. But the inner is undisturbed by all of this north, south, hot, cold stuff. And so is the I, by the way. You may be sitting here this morning, it may feel cold, and the body may be shivering, but the I is unaffected. Can you see it? So too, what is it that we're coming from? So now he continues, he says, Lord Krishna, he says, foolish people don't look beyond physical appearance. We don't look beyond the outer, just the appearance. Thus they overlook my true nature, which is the Lord of everything. Thus, deluded by self-preoccupation, ego, their knowledge is superficial, their lives are disastrously full of wrongdoing, and their works and hopes are all in vain. Why? Well, it's simple, because in that state where we see the object, the thing as the truth, and we've become convinced that in obtaining the right objects and avoiding the wrong objects, that we will find the happiness that we seek. That's a delusion. Because the objects are constantly changing and they're not what they appear to be. Science understands that. The objects are not what they appear to be. The objects are what they're made of. In the same way that the baby tree is made of the father-mother tree through the seed, is not made of something else, it's not independent, it doesn't have any existence without that seed, and it's not separate from the seed, it is the seed. In the same way, the objects are not what they appear, but you know that you have a voice within you That's this self-centered nature that keeps saying, that's this delusion. That's the voice of delusion within us. They keep saying, it is as it appears to be. Yeah? And it feels that way, doesn't it? But you come to see that that's false. Okay, so foolish people don't look beyond the physical experience. And what happens then? If we don't look beyond the appearance, what happens?
We believe we are the appearance.
Yeah, suffering. Thus they overlook my true nature, which is the Lord of everything. We don't see what's really there. We just see the appearance. But it's been proven demonstrably that the appearance is false. This is a hologram. It's all a light show. Everything here is made of the same light. It is. This is modern science, for God's sakes. We're going to start watching, we won't do it today, but next Sunday we'll start the Fabric of the Cosmos, that documentary series. But scientists, people who actually pay attention, who study, who ask the question, what is this world? Then we discover something, right? And those people that we call scientists have done this. They're doing it from an objective standpoint, and they've discovered, but nothing is as it appears to be. So as long as we continue to take things the way they appear to be, we are deluded, and we will suffer. We won't get what we want. Yeah? So it has to be so. If you take things on face value, but they're not what you think they are, then what do you get when you get it?
Disappointed.
Disappointed, disjointed, diseased, discombobulated. One of Swami's favorite words.
Eventually you freak out.
Yeah, freaked out. Thus deluded by self-preoccupation. So a little self. Just what I want, what I need, my ideas. Their knowledge is superficial. Does that make sense? It's just surface knowledge, not real knowledge. Their lives are disastrously full of wrongdoing. Because why? Because I'm not honoring what is, I'm honoring what I think is, which is just self-propagating. But that means I don't get where I really want to be. And their works and hopes are all in vain because I don't get where I really want to be. But the great souls, Mahatmas, who have seen my true nature and take refuge within, and they realize I am the source of everything and worship me with one-pointed devotion. Why? Well, we all worship the same, actually, but different forms of it. If you just know that everything here is made of atoms, then whatever you worship here, aren't you really worshiping atoms? And everybody worships something. I worshipped my boss. I worshipped money. I worshipped the women that I wanted in my life. Don't you worship something? Worship is simply a relationship between something that you imagine to be of great importance to you, and then living your life in a way that you get it or you have a relationship with it, isn't it? That's what worship is. Yeah? So everybody worships something, but what Lord Krishna is sharing here is, whatever you worship here, you're worshiping me. So why not get it straight? So the wise ones know. We've worked it out. That's all. That's all it is. We're all in the same stuff. We're all in the same stuff. We're all in the same soup. We're all in the same primordial place. It's just that as we work it out, then what happens? We reorient. We say, I'm going to stop worshiping the appearance. Right? I'm going to stop worshiping that which is ever changing. And by the way, we only do it because the world cracks us open. Thank God for that. Otherwise, we have to remain in this shell forever, and that would be a terrible thing. Okay, we should close. We'll come back to the same point tomorrow morning. Anyone comment or question on the discussion this morning? Kartikeya, which planet?
I was thinking when people are fully into themselves and they pick a career, they're just making lots of things for people, but those things eventually break down and become trash and litter. So they're not working in sync with nature. That's how I'm thinking.
It's very good observation, Kartikeya, and very helpful because, and really that's so with everything. All of the great monuments that you look at in the world, they're all crumbling, So it's true with everything here. So when he says it all ends up being in vain, that's what he's speaking about. Okay. But it's not a bad story at all. It's a very good story because if we really can come to understand what we're working with and what's here and who's here and what our relationship is with it, where did we come from, where did this world come from, and it's possible to know. It's possible to know what is to be known and then to come into this settled place and to be able to live these lives without being disturbed about the things that are happening, without even having fear of death or anything that might happen to you. Absolutely so. Which is allowing us to find the joy that we've been seeking all this time. To live in it. To bow and to bend, we will not be ashamed. We turn, we come out right. Okay, anyone touch that? Let's close with final prayers and arati, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Varvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Varvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Varvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashanto Makashi Dukhabhak Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Mahamritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Universal prayer. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. On below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. And let's rise for our tea.